This is the Three Amigos. It's episode number 9. And we are Peter Freuwine, we're Richard Dillman, and myself, Regis Tremblay. Back again just after a couple of days, Victor Hugo Vaca Jr. in Georgia. Victor, welcome back to the group.
The Three Amigos plus one.
Plus one. Well, we consider you an amigo also.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, we got a lot. We got a lot to cover tonight. We're going to talk about Trump and MAGA, Make America Great Again. Going to want Victor's opinion on Trump. Is he a cult figure? What is this MAGA about? Is he losing support? We're going to talk about what three of us think, anyway, the Three Amigos, is an impending U.S. economic collapse. And of course, we couldn't do a show tonight if we didn't talk about Venezuela. Trump is sending a fleet of ships, including the Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, to the region off of Venezuela. Also, very big deal. Russia, China, and Iran are in Venezuela. They've been supporting it economically, politically, and reportedly with military, offensive, and defensive equipment. What is that going to set up? And then, if we have time, want to talk about how Trump is spinning the failed meeting with President Xi Jinping. He called it a great step towards everlasting peace. He went there and came back with nothing. And so this is what we'll talk about tonight. So I'm going to begin first with you, Victor Hugo. I know you've been following Trump, fortunately or unfortunately. What are your thoughts in general about Donald Trump? And do you think he's got some kind of a psychological illness? Anyway, be good to hear from you in Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, about your thoughts on Trump.
I think he's a actor that is in the Hall of Fame with the World Wrestling Federation. He's also on IMDb and has done many movies. He's also a traitor to the people who voted for him, really. But he did his job as an actor. His job was to fool people like myself. I lost family, I lost friends, I lost business, and I have the emails to prove it. When I voted for him twice, my family, my friends, the gallery owners were telling me, Victor, if you don't stop promoting Trump, we can't sell your art. My family disowned me because they said Trump was this, that, the other thing. So what we're experiencing is a psyop. And in the psyop that we're experiencing, bringing in the new world order from the old world order, because we're transitioning. All these actors, just like when you watch the World Wrestling Federation or any kind of soap opera, as the Mossad says, we are the producers, we are the directors, we are the screenwriters. The world is our stage. You're watching a play. From what we saw with Xi Jinping and Donald Trump to what we're seeing right now in Venezuela, they have to bring down the currencies to enslave people in this digital currency, which is a whole new method of slavery. But they also have to get rid of a lot of the population because there's just too many right now in their eyes, not in reality. Because too many people would start noticing and then they would be in danger. This has been long thought out plan. So yeah, Trump is a traitor to those who believed in him, the MAGA, who turned out to be a cult. See, I snapped out of that cult. And then after I realized that Trump was an actor and a traitor, I started getting it from the people who were MAGA, who were then telling me that I was a traitor and that so I got disowned from both sides because the reality is that we're witnessing a psyop, people. The leaders, the world leaders, they're all puppets, their role. And we, as the audience who are watching, whether it's BBC or CNN, we're drawn into the drama, but it's all drama. It's all nonsense. I don't know how long it's going to take us to realize that because what's happening in Venezuela is to bring us into what Albert Pike was noting, the Third World War, because they want to bring upon the destruction of Edom. That's why they're making everybody hate Israel. It's so obvious at this point. If you can't see what's going on there, then you're either a psychopath or a pedophile or an idiot. Pick your choice. There's no other way.
Yeah.
So they have to get it to this point now because we're about to go off the cliff collectively. The whole world is. But the world is picking sides now, and they see what's going on. The US is a terrorist state, which has been backed by England, the crown. It never stopped being the Roman Empire. They just changed names and prepackaged and remarketed everything, which is what they're doing now. Because you're right, the currency is going to crash. The only thing that'll save it is a war. So they have to bring Venezuela into it because they know Venezuela is aligned with China and Russia and Iran and all those people. And they know that the US is full of white elephants. Those US naval, their fleet, our greatest ally, Israel, sold all the information to the Chinese. They literally rebuilt an aircraft carrier to the exact specifications in China. They know exactly how to blow those things out of the water. So that's just Viagra the US is using. But it's no comparison to the rest of the world who has turned on America because America is evil. It's Israel that's running the show, clearly, because when Bibi shows up, Trump is on his best behavior and pulls out his chair.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a traitor. That's a traitor to me. And I voted for him twice, lost family and friends. I don't regret it because at the time, what happened was I fell for the psyop. They made it so bad, so ridiculous, just like they're making it for me right now. They're claiming that I'm a quadruple CIA, double Mossad agent getting paid millions of dollars by Sandy Hook Promise. I'm a closeted homosexual. I'm a terrorist in the former Soviet Union. All this stuff based on sources and beliefs. That's all we are doing. We're going by a bunch of sources and beliefs made up by liars. And so, yeah, Trump is a liar. He's a traitor. He's an actor, but he's doing his job. If you're an actor like I am, I have actually also on IMDb, I've been in award-winning films. You have to know how to act. And so what happened was when I got into this arena, I found out that there's a lot of actors here. But see, it's not just Trump. It's the people behind Trump. It's the people who cover Trump. It's the reporters. It's this, it's that. We are in a web of lies. So many people are compromised and blackmailed that people can't even see past the lies at this point. So that's where we are. It's very dangerous. People don't snap out of it. What they're going to do is they're going to create this hysteria, this pro-American. That's why Alejandro Mayorkas, a Jew, with Merrick Garland, also a Jew, opened the U.S. borders so that all these terrorists could come in, so that they can then have an excuse to rally the MAGA to be patriots and join the military and start killing people in South America because of Venezuela all of a sudden. But now you've got yourself a world war and you've got they got to get rid of the white male Christians. Again, that's part of, people don't like to talk about this stuff. That's why it's amazing how you'll watch these talking heads and they talk about Trump rebuilding the White House. We know what's going on there. They're tearing stuff down because they're building even more like bunkers and secret places and all this stuff. They're realizing something is about to happen and a lot of people are about to die. And so they're keeping us distracted with Venezuela and this, that, and the other thing. It's all distractions. That's my opinion.
I think we'll all agree that it's a stage and it's a bunch of many act plays or a three-ring circus with 10 rings and not three to keep us entertained and distracted. Peter, you pretty much agree with what Victor Hugo has been talking about? do you believe we're being played? We're being entertained?
Oh yeah, I like Victor. I had some hope that when Trump came into office, he'd make some changes. And if you look at his first administration, he didn't do anything he said he was going to do. Um, and then the second administration has been, for me, a total disaster because especially in relation to, I was hoping he would keep his promise to end the war in Ukraine. And I think it was unrealistic to think he could end it in 2 days, but it's been my contention that he could have, you know, or what he should have done is gone before, called a joint session of Congress, stood up before Congress and said, okay, the war in Ukraine's over. We're not going to support it anymore. Now, technically, Congress has the only ability to wage war. So Congress at that point just could have said, "Oh no, we're going to keep the war going." But Trump could have said, "Okay, if we keep this war going, it's on you. It's not on me." And I think the cowards in Congress would have backed down, or could have ended fairly quickly with all the stopping of the aid, both military and other aid. But Trump didn't do any. He he didn't do anything. In fact, now he's escalated things to the point of, I knew when I came to Russia over 2 years ago that we were on the nuclear cliff, that the West had pushed Russia to the very edge of a nuclear cliff. Well, I was hoping Trump would pull us back from it. Not only has he not pulled us back from it, he's we're getting closer, inching closer to the cliff. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? This is insane. And I agree with Victor. I think President Putin said this not too many years ago. He said all the U.S. presidents, the current U.S. presidents, come into office thinking that they make changes, and then some men in black suits show up and tell the president what his actual job is. And I don't know whether they threaten him, they blackmail him, or whatever. But it's clear to me, if you go back, I don't know, at least 50 or 60 years, that every president has been a puppet, and they just do what they're told. And to Victor's point, they say, okay, we're going to do this program or that program to keep the people happy and keep them distracted. But no, it's very clear to me right now that Trump's not in charge, and I think it's pretty simple: follow the money, follow the money. And wherever the money ends, the top of the money chain, that's who controls the Western world. And I think one of the reasons the West is now wanting to go to war with countries like Venezuela and Russia and China is all these countries have said, no, no, we'll be independent, we'll trade with you, but we're not going to be your slaves. And that's where, Russians are very strong, strong people. They're never going to be anybody's slaves, and so are the Chinese. So I 100% agree with Victor that I believe right now we're in the most dangerous period in the history of the world. I think we're in a period right now that's even much more dangerous than Cuban Missile Crisis. What shocks me is most people are sleepwalking. They have no clue how much danger we're in. No clue.
You mentioned some really interesting things. You're right about Putin, and I think the people in the Kremlin, they've realized for quite a while now that the United States president does not make or dictate foreign policy. I think a lot of people are waking up to that. But, Putin and Lavrov and their spokespeople, Dmitry Peskov and Maria Zakharova, have all repeated that endlessly. And they know that the United States is agreement incapable. You mentioned something else. that who's really in control? Who are those guys in the black suits? Maybe we can come back to that in just a bit. I took a note about that because I think it's really important to figure out who or what they are. Richard, I'm going to turn it over to you. Your comments on what Victor had to say.
Well, pretty much right on what both Victor and Peter were saying. As far as MAGA, I look at it more as MIGA, make Israel great again. That all of his actions seem to turn that way, So, it's just incredible. And the thing is when you were in 2017, President Trump turned himself into being Jewish Zionist. He aligned himself with the Chabad Lubavitch faction, which is the synagogue of Satan. No two ways about it. His daughter also being married into Jared Kushner, and Kushner's been Chabad Lubavitch forever. He was even in kibbutzes and stuff like that in Israel. Okay, you got to understand, these people do not speak the truth. They look at you as you're goyim, you're just scum, trash, and they will not give you the truth. So pretty much, and the actions of Trump and what's been coming out of since he took over, last January, speaks what I'm saying. He's just constantly lying about stuff or disinformation, and or stepping away from the real problems in the United States and doing the bidding of the Zionist state. No two ways about it, That's the way I see it with him, Like Peter said too, he had all these things like he said he was going to do when he came in, and I don't see any of that happening. And the thing too is, Trump, he prides himself as being the art of the deal and a great negotiator and everything, but every time he seems to be going with anywhere, recently with President Xi and last time in Alaska or anywhere, he doesn't have any cards at the table. He doesn't have anything to really negotiate. So he walks in there, he's empty-handed. He's got lousy hands every time he's dealt. He doesn't have nothing to really come to the table with. Or he's just basically, that Alaska thing turned into such a joke. It seems to me where you got like the United States presidency has been just corrupted with the Bush family and the Clinton family and the Bush family and the Obama family and the Biden crime family. And now you've got the Trump crime family. It seems like all they're really doing is grifting around and peddling influence, selling the influence. And that's what they seem to be doing to me. I don't see anything coming out of them. And Trump is constantly, he surrounded himself with neocons and Israel firsters like Pete Hegseth, like Kash Patel, like Pam Bondi. Look at Pam Bondi. She's been a long time friend of Jeffrey Epstein and Trump, a long time friend, and a lot of nefarious court things dropped along her way. I mean, you can start looking into these people and saying, "Oh my God, they're not America first." Far, far from it. Far, far from it. Really, all you got to do is look into it a little bit. If you could just, one other thing is, check out the crypto scam President Trump's son Barron did a couple of weeks ago. He made a couple $100 million with inside information, shorten the crypto market. So what you got there is you got yourself a grifting crime family in the White House, just like Biden and Hunter, okay, Obama and Holder, okay. You can go down the list, Cheney and Bush, okay, all satanic Zionist, enablers, or right out Zionists, satanic Zionists. No two ways about it. That's the way I see it.
I wanted to comment on really who's behind it. Victor talked about the Israelis, the Zionists. Richard is talking about the Israelis and the Zionists. Peter was talking about those guys in the black suits. I have a different take on that. It's not that I disagree with it. I question, and I'm going to tell you why, who really is at the top of the pyramid. And I think it's the UK, the former British imperialist hegemons, who for 400 or 500 years were the hegemon. But this is what people don't seem to understand. 250 years ago, Catherine the Great intervened during the American Revolution. She sent naval forces off both coasts against the British, against the United Kingdom, to help the American Revolution. The same thing happened during the Civil War. You know, the British Empire was really lobbying heavily to help the South. The Tsar, and I don't remember if it was Catherine the Great, it might have been, again, sent assistance to the United States. Now, in the eyes of imperial Great Britain, that was an event that they could not forgive. Now, we can fast forward a bit, but there's a lot more in between. But just fast forward a bit to 1917 and the Balfour Declaration. This was a statement, a policy of the British government. They wanted to establish this enclave, Israel, in the Middle East, in Palestine. That eventually happened. So it's the UK that has controlled Israel from the very beginning. They also bought out and bought off the oil-rich Arab states, which British Petroleum has been all over there, a primary player in the oil industry. And then you look at what's happening today. Who is it that's controlling the United States? I think it's all of that. I think it's the City of London. And the City of London is to be distinguished from London as an international city. The City of London is a private entity within the city. It is these former imperialist moneyed people who I think still control everything that's happening in the world today, with the exception, maybe, I'm not sure, of China, Russia, the emerging New World Order in the BRICS. So for a while now, my answer to the question is who's behind it all has not been Israel, although it looks like they're a major player in determining United States foreign policy. I believe it's really the British Empire, which really has not collapsed. It's been using the United States military as a battering ram. Anyway, I don't know whether you guys want to comment on that or you want to agree or not. It's to me, it doesn't matter all that much, but I really think that people have to realize that it's pretty deep and it goes back quite a while to understand who's really in charge. If you don't mind, I'd like to shift gears. We've made reference to the impending U.S. economic collapse. I think that's another multifaceted, complex question. It doesn't just include the United States, but it includes the quote unquote collective West. Victor, going to come back to you. Um, what are your thoughts on the US collective West impending economic collapse when you consider at least two things? Everything I've been reading about the trans-European, the EU economy, is it's collapsing. Germany, the number one powerhouse, companies going bankrupt left and right. They're talking about it being in a recession, and some people are saying it's looking like it's going to be a depression. And I don't care where else you look, they're all hurting. They're enforcing austerity measures on everybody from Spain all the way to Scandinavia. And then when you look at what's happening in the United States, all four of us are looking at that from a distance. But I think there are so many signs that the United States economy is on the verge of collapse that it's hard to not recognize it. Victor, your thoughts on that?
I see your question not so much as switching gears, but actually staying on the topic of what you just finished as to who is actually behind this. Like Smedley Butler said, these are all bankers' wars. Primarily, the bankers are Jews, especially after the Rothschild basically took over the royal crown after the whole Napoleon thing, and they've really never left control of it. But if you look at the Talmud states that each person who identifies as Jews, but they're not. They're the synagogue of Satan. Their father is Lucifer, the father of all lies. That's why in the Talmud it states you can use lies to circumvent the non-Jews. But it also states that they'll have 2,800 slaves each. So that's where the satanic Christians come in, the Freemasons come in, all these other secret societies, these sellouts, these traitors, these military generals and stuff like that. Popes, world leaders, all those actors on the stage. So those are their slaves that they're talking about. They've already got robots, so they don't need the rest of the useless eaters, as the Jew Yuval Noah Harari says. Either that or, like, I think Cohen or the guy who is the Harvard alien expert who's telling everybody that aliens are coming down sometime next month. And apparently that's gonna, I don't know, it'll destroy all religions, which is interesting because they're looking to get a one world religion. And that's what they're trying to do with the currency. That's why I'm bringing this back to all these actors and the play and how multifaceted it is. They got to look over there for the aliens because the digital currency is coming in. Oh, you're going to lose your job because we've got robots to replace you. But don't worry, if you're a traitor, if you're a psychopath, if you're a pedophile, and you've been on Epstein Island, then you're good to go. We have a place for some of you. And so that's where we're heading right now. If people don't wake up and start understanding that, yeah, it's not just the Jews. It's the satanic Christians. It's your brother if he's in the military and he turns a gun on you or his neighbors for central bankers. It's your uncle if he works for the police and he decides to arrest you because, like in Les Miserables, Hunchback of Notre Dame, you had to steal the bread to feed your family. I mean, there's no need for famine. That's man-made. There's no need for war. That's just a distraction because the dollar's crashing. And if the dollar crashes, that all the bonds and everything, it's going to be a ripple effect around the world. But it's destined. It happens. It's happened before. It's going to happen again. So it's how we deal with it this time. And so the propagandists are trying to tell you that the way to deal with it is that you're going to be hungry. That's why they're doing this, cutting off the EBT and all that stuff, because they want people to feel the fear and feel the hunger and feel like they have to rely on government to come in and say, you know what? We're going to give you digital currency, but you're going to have a social credit score. You can't eat more than like 5 steaks a year. You can't travel further than like 100 miles every 6 months, and you can't smoke cigarettes or drink booze. And people are just going to like have to learn to have that digital slavery, to which, just in case for people like us who don't buy into that propaganda, because remember the Smith-Mundt Act was repealed under Obama, and now pretty much 99.9% of what you're hearing in alternative media, mainstream media, so-called truth teller arena, it's lies. So you better learn to do your own research and not rely just on artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is dumb. You could start up your own Substack, have AI write stupid articles about all your enemies, that they're pedophiles, that they're double, quadruple Mossad, triple agents, that they're all like, whatever. And AI will pick that up because AI is stupid. And people are so stupid that they're using AI to get their facts and information. And the best facts and information are held in secret in the Vatican, which is one of the triad, like you were saying, Regis. The City of London, which is the bankers. You've got the Washington, D.C., which is the military arm, the bullies. We're the world terrorists. We have military bases everywhere and in every city. So if you think you're free in the United States, just try acting up. They'll declare martial law on your ass real quick, and you won't be able to leave your house. And if you have traitors in the what is it, the military or the National Guard, they have no problem shooting you because they get psychopaths. They recruit psychopaths. So yeah, people need to wake up to the reality that this is a script and we're following the script. And the dollar, it's not if, but when it's going to crash. And I'm not so sure even about the BRICS because the same people that had to do with the Federal Reserve, which is a racket, and the IRS and all that stuff, they're implementing the BRICS as well. Now, I will say this because the economy in China was crashing, and I don't know how it's doing in Russia, but what China did, and this is smart, they took some of their gold and they started putting it in different places where they have trading partners. And they said, okay, we're going to back our currency with gold that we are going to, because you're going to trust us, we're going to trust you. We're going to keep our gold here in your country, like Venezuela, as opposed to the United States of Israel, which says, hey, listen, this Federal Reserve note, this piece of paper here, trust us because it's backed by the full faith in the Federal Reserve. Yeah, and we're backed by Jews who do peace treaties with people in the Palestine who can't defend themselves, and then we break the peace treaty. But we've paid off the president of the United States of Israel so that when we're in a meeting with him, he could say, "Oh yeah, I totally agree with what Israel is doing. Yeah, they broke the peace treaty, but we're on schedule for Trump Gaza, you know." So yeah, once you control the actors, if you're the director or the producer, I don't care if it's Brad Pitt or Sophia Loren if she comes back to life as a clone. If they are paying you to read the lines, you're going to read the lines. Otherwise, get off the set, and we'll either try to do what supposedly was done to Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the ear got skimmed in the face of a V on his cheek, which most people didn't notice. So the CIA was able to pay some guy to kill Charlie Kirk, but they couldn't afford the right guy to get rid of Trump if he wasn't playing by their rules. See, people don't think this stuff. They're ridiculous. The CIA doesn't miss. I mean, that was a show. That was another show, just like with Charlie Kirk. You don't think that there's enough money where the judge is muting 3,000 people, over 3,000 people? They have gag orders. Why would a judge do that? Everybody who was there is not allowed to talk about what happened. Why? I mean, the thing is, the level of stupid. I was just seeing today how they're spraying skies over here too. And I was talking to some Russians and I was like, look up there. Do you see that? It looks like an invasion. There was like 20 planes just poisoning everybody. And they're like, yeah, those are airplanes. I go, dude, there's not enough air traffic to travel around here, you know? I said, they're poisoning the skies. A lot of people to this day, even the younger generation, these guys were like in their 20s. They had no idea that they're spraying the skies with poison. And that's dumbing them down. And it's also making them have low sex drives, testosterone, and all that stuff. So all this stuff people think is conspiracies, but it's not. It's because of these people who are bankers. By the way, we were also talking about the IMF. If you're with the IMF, you can like kill people and get away with it. You are above the law. You always hear people say, oh, there's no one above the law. Actually, there are. Yeah. If you have diplomatic immunity and stuff like that, there's sovereign people, like if you're with the IMF. So that's why these people, they have no consequence. We're being led by people. Doesn't matter, like I said, if you're Jewish or a satanic Christian or whatever. If you're the kind of person who can live without consequence, that's a heavy burden. Even if you're a good person, I would imagine. But these people choose not to do good. Instead, they choose to eat babies. I don't know what to tell you, man, but that's where we're at, and the dollar's crashing.
Uh, a couple of things. You mentioned an awful lot of things, Victor, and I think some of them we're going to have to reserve for a couple of other shows. But we started out talking about the economy crashing, um, and then you went to this whole idea of digital currency. I would say it's digital everything. Um, it's facial recognition, it's biometric uh, uh, imaging from your eyes, your fingerprints, so they know who you are. And then you talk about 5G, which is going up all over the place, and people really don't understand it, but it's just part of that powerful mechanism that those in government, wherever they're implementing digital everything, will be able to know everything about you. They will be able to cancel your bank account. Uh, if you fast forward, China has had this digital everything. They have had this social credit system, which Victor, you alluded to, where they know how fast you go. If you break the speed limit, you lose credits. They know if you eat more than what you're supposed to eat of a certain food, you lose credits. Um, so there are all kinds of measures that the government, well, it's not the government, it's AI that's doing this social credit system. It's not President Xi or some guy under him who decides who loses and who gains. It's all going to be digital. And, you know, I have a friend who lived in China for a number of years, and I've interviewed him. I asked him specifically about what the Chinese think about this social credit system, that there are cameras everywhere. The government knows everything they do, everything. They scoop it all up. They said, well, if you're a good person, you don't have anything to worry about. Now, that's alien to a lot of us who believe in freedom, who believe in independence, who believe that we, the people, not the guy who's in power, who run the government. Well, that's very frightening to any of us uh, living in a world where you believe in freedom and independence and the right to privacy. Um, I'm going to throw it over to Peter here in just a second, but I want to mention this quote because we've been talking about who's really in charge, and all of you will know Smedley Butler, a general in World War II and decorated twice with the Medal of Honor. This was a quote from him. I'm going to read it. I served in a commissioned rank from second lieutenant to major general. And during that period, I spent most of my time being a high-class muscle man for big business. Victor just expanded who big business really is. He said, for big business, for Wall Street, and for the bankers. There you go. In short, Smedley Butler, this highly decorated, highly respected general, said, I was a racketeer, in short, a gangster for capitalism. Now, that's the United States military. Everybody in the military is basically a gangster for capitalism. So anyway, Peter, if you've been keeping track of this recent topic, uh, let us have your thoughts.
Well, I'll share with you a quote by Henry Ford. I don't know the exact time frame. I think it was in the 1930s. He said, if the American public knew how the really worked, there would be a revolution by tomorrow morning. And so even back then, you know, there were people like Henry Ford who were speaking the truth, and that was just exactly right. The banking system, the bankers have been consolidating power for over 100 years now in the West. And a good example of this consolidation of power is if you look at, there are three um, major funds in the US that basically control between 70 and 80% of all the stocks in the US. It's BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And between those three funds, they control a huge majority share of stocks in the US. And most people don't know this now that these bankers have put legislation on the books. Oh, and by the way, when bankers want legislation written, they write it themselves and they just go hand it to their congressperson, and the Congress, it's like just a rubber stamp. So Congress people don't write law; it's the bankers,
The
and
law,
they're hmm?
the bankers' lawyers.
Oh yeah, oh for sure. And so I know for a fact they put on the books legislation to when this great reset happens, that those stocks and bonds and money in the bank that people think is theirs, it's not theirs because the bank will just, oh no, it's ours. Bye. You have no recourse. So most people don't know this.
Peter, let me jump in and interrupt just for a second, because I know where you stand on what's happening to uh, the stock markets, fiat money in the world. Victor really passed over this very quickly. China has been moving gold to many of its allies. Uh, you and I and Richard have been talking a great deal about gold and what is happening that's going to have a tremendous impact on the future of the world economy.
Yeah, well, um, at least for the last 10 years, Russia and China have been buying as much gold and silver as they can get their hands on very quietly. Most people don't know this, but even China is bypassing the gold and silver markets, and they're going around the world as we speak, and they're buying gold and silver mines. So the problem with this is that completely bypasses the market. So people don't see that demand that's happening on this massive level. So it's not registered in the actual price of gold and silver. But to your point right now, what's happening as the dollar is being the value of the dollar is being destroyed. If you look at gold and silver, they're up at actually record highs as we speak, and they're nowhere close to where they're going to be because I don't know over the last 100 years, these bankers have destroyed. I think it's like 97% of the value of the U.S. dollar. But that's not enough for them. That remaining 3%, they want that too. So they're coming for that last 3%. So if you think gold and silver are high now, just wait for 6 months or 12 months. It's gonna go it's gonna go ballistic. But the reality is it's not gold and silver that's going up, it's the dollar. It's being destroyed. So it takes more of those dollars to buy that same 1 ounce of gold or 1 ounce of silver. So yeah, and central banks, not just Russia and China, but central banks all over the world right now are just um, buying as much gold as they can get their hands on. But even typically, countries around the world had stored a lot of their gold in London. Well, now they're like, we don't trust London anymore. So they're repatriating their gold. They're saying, okay, London, we want our gold back in our country, in our gold vaults because we don't trust you anymore, which is extremely smart. But that tells you how countries around the world are preparing for this crash. They see it coming and they're going, okay, we need to prepare for this mess.
So Uh, Peter, is the purpose of Russia and China and others uh, purchasing gold because they want it to back up, for example, the Chinese yuan, the Russian ruble, the Indian, what is it, renminbi? Is this the reason? What I mean, is this the
Well,
value of gold that it is going to back these currencies of other
Well,
countries?
well,
come on.
it's not just gold. It's other. They're talking the BRICS alliance. Now, if you look at what President Trump says, he says, "Oh, the BRICS is trying to destroy the dollar." Well, that's not actually. That's the opposite of the truth. The world was happy to be on the dollar. It's just the U.S. has weaponized the dollar, and a good example is that is these frozen Russian assets. People don't understand when the EU and the U.S. froze these 300 billion plus Russian assets. It was like an economic nuclear bomb going off. Now, what happened is all these other countries who saw this happen, like, well, if they can do that to Russia, they can do that to us. So at that point, these countries are like, okay, we can't trust the U.S. dollar anymore. We can't trust the bankers in the EU. We've lost all trust for these people. So we're going to have to create our own monetary system that's outside the dollar system. And that's why the BRICS alliance is such an important alliance at this point in time, because to your point, the BRICS is, as we speak, creating their own new currency system that is outside the US dollar system. And to your point, it's the they're one of the main currencies that they're basing this on is the China yuan. But they're making it multinational, where if you want to use your own currency within the BRICS, they're making a system where that works. But it's not just gold and silver that they're going to use. They're also talking about a basket of other, commodities, whether it's oil or grain or some other valuable commodity to have a solid basis. Because the reality is the dollar, there's nothing backing the dollar up. Like at this point, it's worthless, but people don't realize it's worth. As long as they still have a trust in the dollar, they think there's some value there, but that's just nonsense. So to my point is, right now, 90% of the world is waking up and going, we need to get out of the dollar system. We're going to create our own system. And this is something they never wanted to do. It's something the U.S. has forced them to do to protect themselves, because they're not going to allow their assets to be frozen by if Trump or some nut job, leader in the West wants to freeze your assets. They're like, no, we're not good with that.
Richard, I didn't forget you.
Yeah,
We kind of narrowed it down. The
yeah.
US dollar, gold, silver, the global economy, the emerging uh, new multipolar world championed by the BRICS, developing their own international monetary fund, their lending banks, and agreeing right now between several of these countries to trade in their own currencies, which are obviously backed by gold. Peter mentioned a couple of really important things. Many countries may not have gold and silver, but they have oil, or they have forest products, or they have other valuable resources that this new basket of commodities that Peter talked about will determine the strength, the power, purchasing power, trading power of these different emerging countries. So, Richard, um, this can be really confusing to a lot of people. Do you want to add to the confusion, or do you want to try to clear it up?
No, I just see one thing, that the continuing demise of the dollar becoming worthless aids these New World Order people to eliminate the middle class totally. So in the United States or in Europe, you're not going to have a middle class. You're going to be either dirt poor or very, very rich. And this is a lot much easier for these people to bring in their supposed New World Order, which they've spoke about in 1992, and on and on and on. And this is a thing where, total control. And in the EU, what they've done over there is just bring in, first off, blew the hell out of all the countries, the Middle East countries, and made those people ship them all over to Europe and flooded them so they, to ruin their economy. And in the United States, they let a whole bunch of, I don't know, something like 30 million through the Biden come up over the border. So it's just a big hot mess in the West. And this is all done and planned, I believe, by the New World Order, these same Satanists that we've been talking about. The other thing I'd like to say, too, is you talked about the Vatican and the city of London and Washington, D.C., but I'd also like to mention the diplomatic covers they have over there in Basel, in Switzerland, and in Davos, and in Zug. Pretty much the whole country of Israel, Switzerland, is they could do whatever they want. They're not under the law at all. They could do whatever they want here in that country. So yeah, there's one other thing too, though. There's the black swan coming up that I'm not talking about, and that's a huge, huge derivative bubble that's going to blow it sometime. Okay, and this is coming from the 2008 housing scandal of derivatives, but this time it's like hundreds and hundreds of times the size of the derivative exposure. It basically, I just wrote this down. It's basically somewhere between 600 trillion and one and a half quadrillion. If you could just wrap your head around, this is what the black swan is. So people got to understand that after 2008, or even before that, they turned the banks into casinos. The bankers. That's why they won't pay anybody any interest. They need every dollar they can get their hands on to do their derivative bets. And that's the only reason why the dollar, you wonder why, well, if the dollar is worth 3 cents, how come it's still a leader in the world? Like it's, it's 80, almost 81 rubles to a dollar. How the hell can that be? It's because they're using the dollar in this derivative scam. So this is coming down too. It's a black swan. And when that hits, oh boy, there's only a few ways out of that. It's called Glass-Steagall. That Glass-Steagall. But that's coming too. They've done nothing about that.
My head is spinning. My head is spinning.
Yeah, well, these are truth. These are facts. I'm not making this up.
No, I know. I know you aren't. And I think all four of us.
The Troubled Asset Relief, the TARP fund, okay, the Troubled Asset Relief Fund, they gave them $780 billion. This was in 2008, okay, to bail out the banks. But in fact, Bernanke, at the same time, printed out and gave the central bank $16 trillion in 2008. So he kept, what Bernanke did is he made my son and my kids, my grandkids, made them, debtors for who knows where, into 50, 60 years into the future, if they could ever pay this back. This is how much they polluted the economy. These people are running the economy that they are so incompetent. They're about as incompetent as they are anti-human. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah,
it's just
I'll bet you got a lot more to say about a lot of things, Richard. But thanks for that.
No, really, the black swan is there. I mean, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it when they're talking these figures.
Well, listen, we put a bunch of things out there tonight, and we're coming up on an hour, so I'm going to try to bring this to a close. But I want to mention a couple of things, and not by summary, but a couple of things that are important. First of all, I want to thank Victor for joining us again. He has this amazing, articulate way of expressing some very important things, and I would have to say connecting the dots, and there are many more dots that we're going to have to connect. I know all three of us are hoping that Victor, you'll join us on a somewhat regular basis, because I mean you're like a volcano or an earthquake. You 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 mention a lot of things quickly, but I've taken some notes here, and each one of the things you mentioned, at some point we've got to drill down a little bit deeper, to quote, as they say, to go down the rabbit hole. The other thing I would like to say is this: for those of you that are watching, it's very important that if you like the show, you click the like button. It's very important that you make a comment, even if the comment is, I like the show, I loved Victor, he looks like a multicolored Santa Claus coming up. But it's very important to help us promote the show in terms of these algorithms that determine where it gets placed in the search engines. And finally, I'd like to thank everybody. And I'd like to give a shout out to a number of people. You know who you are. You seem to be commenting on not only this show, but the other shows that I produce. We're really appreciated. All of this is completely free. There's nothing that I produce. There's nothing that the three amigos produce that will ever be hidden behind a paywall. It's out there because my operating principle has been that the information we share, you can't put a price tag on it. You've got to make it free, so as many people as possible will access it. So I want to conclude by saying thanks to my amigo buddies, Peter and Richard. This was a great undertaking. We're already on episode 9. And finally, to Victor Hugo, Vaca Jr., thanks so much. You're really energized these past 2 meetings we've had. We're going to have to do it again, and I know you'll be available.
If I could just say one thing in closing so that people don't get so freaked out. What Richard said is absolutely true. It's a black swan. But once you realize how ridiculous it all is, the numbers that are being thrown out there, the quadrillions, it's like a movie where I think it was The Spy, where the guy is holding up the whole world and he says, you got to pay me $1 million, gazillion, quadrillion, trillion dollars. And everybody's just looking at him like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's what's happening, people. They're going to throw numbers at you that are so ridiculous, you're never going to be able to pay it back.
Yeah.
And really all you have to do is say no. You just have to say, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. And there's other, like Regis was saying, if you don't have gold, you have oil. If you don't have oil, you have manpower. If you don't have manpower, you have intelligence. There's always a way of surviving, people. They just want you to think that you have to rely on the government for survival. That's not true. That's all. It's all a movie, people. You're watching a movie. Write your own script.